So I put my water down in the woods so I can continue to walk without being covered by my water. Just wanted to keep talking about this. But basically, as the phenylpiracetam's kicking in and I'm no longer taking Adderall, I feel, this is something I felt for a while, I really feel like if I don't meditate, I have no solid identity. And like, I mean that as like, my real identity is someone who habitually breathes. So if I'm not attentive to the manner in which I habitually breathe, the manner in which I habitually walk around, all of these things, journaling, my environment, the people around me, then I don't really get to participate in this system that I outsource my sanity to. Because one thing I'm realizing as I get off of Adderall, which is something I've always known, my brain is very, 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 very abstract. Like I really benefit from having solid walls intellectually to bounce off of, because otherwise, I mean, my attention, it just kind of goes everywhere. But it's good. It's ultimately very good. It's this massively expanding attention that just rips through everything. And I need to funnel that into jiu-jitsu ultimately, because if it's not grounded in the body, then it's not really grounded in anything. And this is the thing I've just kind of realized, is that it's really very necessary to, I mean, like, know thyself. And this is where, I don't know, something my dad always told me, which was, it's good advice. He's always like, Devin, don't act crazy. Like, don't tell people you think you're crazy or something. I'm like, well, this is good advice. But I do always kind of feel crazy. Like, I've always kind of felt like a little crazy. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Well, I've never felt like I'm illogical or I'm fundamentally ungrounded. I've always been very able to look at the world objectively and say, well, this action leads to this other action, and this action comes from this action, and the natural consequence of this information is this other information, and we can look at the pattern, see the pattern. I'm always very good at this stuff. But when I say, like, crazy, I mean, like, I don't know, there's part of me that's very much wants to just you see, it finds unification in martial arts, and that's really the problem. Not the problem, but that's the solution. The solution is it finds unification in martial arts. It ultimately, like, I don't understand what the purpose of my life would be if I wasn't trying to create systems that allow me to train martial arts. Is that crazy? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think I'm just a very, very passionate and dedicated martial artist. But at the same time, though, that's all I think about is this storyline and these, like I just walk and I'm just doing martial arts moves in my head on people. I'm seeing someone go for the takedown, push in, redirect, like arm barring, flying arm bars, all this stuff. Exactly how you do it, like specifically sequences where someone reaches out for you as they're pushing in, and you use alternations of head shrugs and shoulder crunches and sacrifice throws to take the back, or by taking the back of the dominant angle, secure the arm, head, neck position to get the guillotine sweep, armbar, shoulder crunch to mount the dominant choke. And if you're like, what the heck is this guy talking about? I'm talking about these emergent movement patterns that I noticed in fighting that are just really, really fascinating. Like, because we have to move our body in a unified manner in order to get anywhere in fighting. It's ultimately, since you're moving your body in a unified manner, you have to take all of the parts of your body and you have to bring them towards one unified movement. Otherwise, you'd move in different directions simultaneously, i.e. nowhere. You have to concentrate your body into one thing. You're like, why does he keep on talking about concentrating the movement of your body in one direction? Like, why is this so relevant? It's like, well, because that means that there's one counter that's based on the all possible movements that are equal and opposite to that other movement. So there's one class. That's the point, is that since you're directing your body into one unified movement, there is actually one class of movements that contains all of the subgrips and sequences and submissions and positions that you would use. And it's just so interesting. So back to the sanity thing. I think this is really useful. Like, I don't understand what sanity is apart from a goal. Okay, I think this is a really good way to describe it. So my dad always like kind of knew what he wanted. He's just like, I don't want to be poor. My parents are dead. I have no resources. This sucks. I don't want to be poor. Just very, very focused on not wanting to be poor and wanting to have a family, wanting to be able to enjoy the freedom that his intellect could provide for him and that he could provide for himself. So he always judged his mental state based on his ability to move towards this goal. And he can move toward the goal, so he's good. Well, I mean, I guess like before I had really severe insomnia, I was like 8. I kind of felt a little crazy because I didn't really, I guess like, you just kind of feel insane because you're like 8, I guess. You're just like, what the heck is all this? Yeah, high IQ, potentially. That's very high IQ, but have high IQ and you're just looking at the world and you're analyzing the world. And I guess I noticed one thing. I don't really think I'm insane. I think I'm like the only sane person, which might be the most insane thought. Actually, I don't think I'm the only sane person. Like, I'll read like Dante, I'll read Nietzsche, which is a famous insane person. At least the ones before, like, I like up unto Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil. After that, like Twilight of Idols and Genealogy of Morals, I think his low metabolism gets the better of him and his ideas start to degenerate. I think Zarathustra was his peak. And I think Beyond Good and Evil is the prologue to Zarathustra. So being human is somewhat contradictory. I mean, it's an imbalanced equation. Like, am I crazy or am I aware of the imbalanced equation? Because it seems to me that being human is this imbalanced equation. Like, why do we like art? And this is something, my father really likes art. And like, what is art if not controlled madness? And when I say madness, like, I mean, this is what I mean. There's part of me, Adderall tones this down, but there's part of me that is always generating ideas, constantly at a ferocious, not ever fascinating, because that would be kind of crazy, but at a ferocious rate, just generating ideas. And it only derives satisfaction from more, bigger, better, more creative ideas. And it's just, it craves, like, I crave deep down at my core the generation of new, interesting, and novel ideas, like, constantly. I want to like this, the feeling is this feeling deep down that I want to just like turn the entire earth into art by the willpower of like just like have like these handles on the earth. I just grab the handles and I just exert my will into the earth, and the earth like starts to like terraform into this like epic, like multi-dimensional sculpture of artwork, like that. Like, kind of like something between like Eden and whatever Dr. Manhattan created in Watchmen. So it's like I need to do that. Like, life itself is the desire to do that. And Adderall focuses that to a much more mundane level. And that's why I'm doing phenylpiracetam right now. Also because I feel like overtaxing the NMDA receptors and the dopamine transport chain is probably going to just have long-term negative metabolic effects. And that there's a whole bunch of reasons why. Mostly, I guess, reducing the amount of Adderall I needed, sleeping without Adderall. I've done the experiment before and it works really well, and my brain always works really well afterward. Also makes Adderall work better after I get back on it. And yeah, just more creativity. I was noticing when I was making videos, like I'd be like, what do I talk about now? I'm like, this is weird. I don't have these problems, but I am, because my default mode network is too active, because I'm taking things that are overtaxing my dopamine transport chain and my NMDA receptor from the dopamine agonist perspective, whereas I could be stimulating these things via the prefrontal cortex and the cholinergic systems, which would probably be much better based on the research that I've done around neurogenesis and the hippocampus and how it relates to these regions. And also, I'm just noticing that my brain's very much stuck in this default mode, and I don't like that, because again, I identify with that part of me that just is constantly creating, is like to just see anything and to just new ideas, always connecting the new ideas. And Adderall is very useful, because Adderall, at least it forces me to like stick to one train of thought. And again, that burp. I'll just keep walking. I'm not going to try to get that burp out, but whatever. So Adderall forced me to stick to one train of thought, but I don't want to be on one train of thought. I want to try to connect the Merovingian dynasty to the reference in the Matrix and how that relates to John McAfee's understanding of coding. I want to connect those things. I want to understand how the Russians used a different development of the Greek language in order to derive nootropic substances that operate on different principles than American nootropic substances. I want to see if these form a symbolic yin and a yang in some sort of neuroscience, Taoist, enlightened utopia. Like, that's what I want to think about. I don't want to think about highly linear things like, how do I don't know. It makes my thought process too linear. Whereas what I feel like my thought process is really doing, like, it's sort of like faith in God almost. But like having faith that if I trust the central tendency of my thought process, however many crazy directions it goes in, it does bring me home. It brings me back to a central point of action. And I think that that is breathing. Breathing is the central point of action. I think martial arts is the central point of action, because like, what am I mean, you have to unify yourself around breathing, but you need higher levels of unity, because like just being able to breathe is a very low level of unity. Like, ultimately, you need to have higher demands of unification on your psyche by at least 2 orders of magnitude than is required in your day-to-day existence, or your mechanism will suffer degeneration as a result of overtaxation based off of lack of calibration. Yeah, that's what's going to happen, because you're training yourself just to walk around and do daily life. So anytime daily life gets 5% harder, or you just age, like if I'm training to win the ADCC, which I am, and I am simultaneously walking around, I'm going to feel like walking around is like a luxury vacation. So my body's going to be like, whoa, we're just relaxing. Everything's great. Awesome. Then I have